Many believe Korea has created a miracle case during the manufacturing age. But the question is, what about now? How are we preparing ourselves for the next industrial revolution? Indeed, we have dealt with this issue before, but we want to revisit it today with particular reference to the coming of new government and emerging new policy directions right here in this program, Upfront.
AlphaGo, an AI-based program that defeated Korean Go master Isidore last year, is back more fierce than ever before. It managed to beat the world's top-ranked Go player China's Ke in a 3-match series sweep. AlphaGo's landslide win indicated that we are at the beginning of a fourth industrial revolution. But according to a recent study, Korea is lagging 4 years behind advanced economies like the US or Germany in preparing for the fourth industrial revolution. The new Moon Jae-in administration has demonstrated its commitment to enhancing science and technology with a special focus on the fourth industrial revolution. Moon has stressed the importance of being prepared for a new technological era since early on.
4차 산업혁명 준비에 국가의 모든 역량을 모아야 합니다. 모바일 우선을 넘어 인공지능 우선이 되어야 합니다.
The fourth industrial revolution is already driving a new wave of technological innovation in the global arena. On this week's Upfront, we take a look at where Korea stands in terms of the fourth industrial revolution and what it should do down the road to adapt.
For today's discussion, in studio we have Professor Cho Sung-zoon. He's a professor of industrial engineering at Seoul National University joining us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we have our favorite guest, I suppose, on this subject. Mr. Sun Yi, he's the former head of Bain Company Korea. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. This is an interesting discussion, no matter how many times we have in this program. Recently, I suppose, several recent developments. First of all, AlphaGo has retired after defeating the world Go champions, China's Ke and then Korea's Isidore as well. And since then, ever since the victory of AlphaGo last year, for a whole year in Korea, we've been talking so much about what's happening about fourth industrial revolution. Mr. Sun Yi, your observation about what's been happening overall for the last year, and a lot of people have been complaining that Korea has been very slow in terms of catching on with the trend. What's your observation on that perspective?
Well, it's coming, it's one of those things. It's interesting if you actually measure the time it took smartphones to get to us. It took 7 years. And a computer, it took 20 years. So it's going to take time, but it's coming. I thought it would be interesting to see that AlphaGo now is a second generation is coming up. Mm-hmm. But you look at the finance industry and investment industries, the trigger point will happen probably in this year or early part of next year.
What do you mean by trigger point?
So trigger point is similar to AlphaGo. So people remember that event, but all this research is probably done prior.
Right.
So the trigger point, so whether there's an unveiling new investment, a machine, or something that will come out, and once that triggers, most of the public will recognize that as the point.
So you're saying basically we'll see another kind of very visible event, like it happened
absolutely.
in the game
I think
of
we're going to
in
see
finance. We'll
absolutely,
see something.
we're going to see something in the medical industry. We're going to see something in the investment industry. We're going to see something in everyday life industry.
That means we will continue to talk about fourth industrial revolution throughout the year, I suppose. Professor Cho, your career, I suppose, in recent years, especially your participation in so-called Government 3.0, the committee in the previous government, and you're heading the big data committee there overall. When observers say that the progress driven by the Korean government during the previous administration has been slow, do you agree with that? If so, what's your observation for explanation or excuse for that slow progress, if you will?
I think it's slow to many people because people spend 2-3 years trying to figure out what creative economy means.
Right.
And the wording is confusing and very abstract and ambiguous. So it took a lot of time. But the the fourth industrial revolution is about not just about technology, but about changing the way people do their business. Manufacturing, tech, finance, it doesn't matter which industry you are in, using technology, big data, AI, you can do things very differently. And doing things differently is a very challenging task.
Right.
And so I think my understanding of creative economy is doing things differently.
Right.
Now, that is a very difficult thing to do. So it'll take some time. But eventually, many companies and government ministries are doing their best, going that direction. So we will see some fruits in the next 2-3 years or 5 years down the road.
Under the umbrella of the concept creative economy, with particular reference to the fourth industrial revolution, have you seen sort of considerable progress in terms of our understanding of it within Korean media or Korea's own national discourse, if you will, for the past about a year, would you say?
Well, not much.
Not much.
Not much, unfortunately. And the first thing, I'm a big data committee chair, and we had to think a lot about how to make data more accessible, public data as well as private data. And we have a huge obstacle, which in the form of legislature, personal data protection law, and that really blocks progress, and there are many other regulations. And there are many other issues, but I think we need to discuss more about that openly.
One of the issues with the this fourth industrial revolution, comparing what Germany has done and what U.S. has done and what we're going through is fundamentally a bit different. What Germany has done is basically they're looking at the next revolution with the manufacturing base, which has been they're the front runner.
Right.
So they're adding a lot of sensors, a lot of service-based economy on top of the manufacturing base. Our manufacturing base is that even though we say 70% is manufacturing, it's relatively weak, and we are a lot more tool manufacturing. Our upgraded manufacturing version, if you're going to call it 2.0, is still really hasn't taken place.
When you say Korean manufacturing is weak, you mean the foundation of taking further steps upward? We don't have as much of it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we don't have a lot of the innovation on the manufacturing for the past few years. We've been competing on the cost. It's one of the reasons why we are being challenged by Chinese, basically. So there's the manufacturing. The U.S. is purely driven by ventures. It is by the
private sector.
Private sectors. So one of the challenges that we're going to face, with the previous administration, the current administration. It is very, very difficult for a government to kind of initiate these things. And just having these committees, I'm not sure what's going to come out this, because you're going to require private sector, not because someone pulls that, but they have to have the ownership. And the other one is academics. So, Professor Cho mentioned the data mining, but it is almost impossible to find advanced analytics people right now. And this is a similar situation with the United States. So companies like Amazon has basically decided to build their own advanced analytics people. By hiring
them, training them.
Yeah, so
it
takes a few years to get them out of college. And that's a big challenge for not just the U.S., but especially for us here.
In that sense, recently, New York Times carried an article about particularly the artificial intelligence, one important area of fourth industrial revolution. And the New York Times pointed out that China may be catching up really fast with the United States in that regard, closing the gap while Trump administration is actually cutting their budget for supporting AI development. China is vastly expanding its expenditure and so on. Is that what Korea should have taken? Greater government role? I guess Mr. Sunny would disagree with the perspective overall, but the overall slowness of the progress that we have seen for the past year or so, would you say there has been a lack of commitment on the government or society in general, or are there any other reasons in comparing Korea with China, for instance?
Yeah, I agree with the China becoming a very strong in AI research. But I go to international conferences, and I hear more Chinese than English in the hallways.
Right.
And the papers, the papers that I read with my students mostly have Chinese authors in the name. So I mean, they are much bigger nation than we are, and so it's natural that there are more AI people. But at least the thing that Korean government can do is at least let the universities, let the companies to be able to compete without their intervention. So
just like the case where you ran into a problem with the legal structure and so on.
Exactly.
Okay.
And for instance, we cannot have, say, data science graduate program at SNU because there is a regulation that you cannot have a new educational program because it's near the capital.
Right.
If you are located near capital, you cannot expand your enrollment.
I see.
Okay,
I see.
that's a law.
Right.
That is very strong in the last 30 years. And so the only way you can do is to reduce other programs' enrollment and then within the university system and make a new program.
There's tendency, we say the government is a culprit of all these issues, which probably is, right? But I think you have to be mindful. A lot of these are driven by also political interest groups.
Right.
Let's just pick one, medical, right? The remote diagnosis, prognosis service delivered by doctor, which is illegal.
Right.
Now, who's blocking that? It's not really the government, it's the doctors, right? Because, that's the technology I think is available today. You don't need a fourth industrial revolution to kick that off, right? It's available today, but we're not leveraging.
And the government of Lee Myung-bak, for instance, Lee government fought hard for it, but they failed to achieve it.
They failed, and unless you open that up, it's very difficult to make advance. Another good one is fintech. The fintech is what we call the synergistic integrated technology. So by fintech itself, you cannot do anything. It has to have a platform, financial platform. So all the financial platforms are driven by, regulated by financial industry.
Right.
But
in Korea, however, Korean financial industry is very different from Wall Street, for instance, because we believe government has bigger voice in running things in the Korea's financial industry than other countries. Why is it that we continuously run into this kind of resistance?
We're just moving too slow. The fintech is moving much faster. And the problem with the fintech is you don't know if this works until you run through at least a year.
Right, that's true.
Right? Whether this will actually work, we don't know. Credit rating system, credit scoring system, which traditionally the banking's been using for the last 20, 30 years. They basically divide into 7 categories. The best category to the default category. Today, with the venture technology, you could really divide into 30 different categories. Right? And you could do that randomly, you can do that routinely, you can do this systematically. It's hard to implement them without the government says, okay to use that.
I see.
It will take a couple of years, maybe 3 years. And we don't know if it works or not, right? Until you use them, right?
Right.
So it takes a live data to experiment those.
And who will take the responsibility for letting it go, I suppose? That's the question.
That's the idea of technology. I mean, it's... the other good one is a drone technology.
Right.
The people are worried that it's going to fly and fall down, right?
Exactly.
But you got to wait and see. One of the biggest problems with the drone technology is the business model is not accurate. So what happens is you could send stuff through drones, but unless you have something coming back, you're 50% utilized, which is not economically viable.
Right. So technology progress getting into trouble with the current system of institutions of political economy structure of the nation, I suppose. Let's talk about the outlook, in a way, going forward, because we have a new government in Korea. The Moon government seems to have all these things going. For instance, they have set up or will soon set up the 4th Industrial Revolution Committee directly under President's leadership. It indicates probably the President will actually take a direct look at it in terms of making sure the progress is being made. I guess you're in a perfect position to offer an evaluation on this because you have experience with the previous government about this plan that seems to be in the minds of the Moon government. How would you how would you evaluate what we see so far in terms of the plan of this new current government?
Yeah, I think it's a good sign that the president is interested in this issue, and he is going to personally interact with the committee and see how it goes. So I think it's a very good sign. Now, the earlier plan that I saw is about information superhighway kind of IoT internet. So it's a hardware. It's like a road highway system, so that the data can flow easily. That's a kind of infrastructure, and it's very easy to measure how fast you made compared to, say, 5 years ago. So it's a very easy to understand and easy to advertise as your accomplishment. But
what I remember is, as a candidate, candidate Moon promised setting up this IoT network nationwide, super speed IoT network. But towards the end of his campaign, he pulled down the item, saying instead of setting up national network, he's going to encourage the private sector to build this thing. So does he have a clear vision here? Does he have a clear idea about where the nation should go in terms of dealing with the fourth?
Yeah, I think he's too busy to deal with that at this moment. But he will hear from experts, and he can set the course more appropriately. But what I want to say is that infrastructure is only one component. You need data, and for data you need better access, and you have to have all those regulations removed, and special interest groups, and also you need data scientists and people who can actually transform the data into insights. Now, finally, you really need business people who understand the technology, who see the business values, who can transform the insights into business values. And those people in the insurance companies and finance companies and manufacturing companies, those ordinary people now need to understand what technology can offer them, how to utilize them, how to make values out of it. So you need a lot of education and training.
What Professor said is that that's just the beginning, right? One thing that I would recommend is, I would kind of go back and these 17 creative centers that the previous government has established, and I would not just abolish them and start new. I would continue on to that momentum, because what's really important is basically private sectors. And if you look at those 17 centers, a lot of large corporations were built into that, So that into that. So I think you need that momentum to go on, and I think the worst you could do is to restart that over. And if you look at what's really in the fourth industrial revolution, it's a lot is what previous government has done. And underneath that, it is about the ventures, it's about the academics, it's about the private sectors making an investment. And you got to get them going rather than the government committees. So it is a very, very important to actually have them work together. I think that's going to be a challenge. If I were to define a success for this administration, is I would just set up like 2 or 3 key deregulation items. For example, whether it's a medical, whether it's a data, privacy, something that's huge that no one has done before, and just set up. You look at previous administration, whether it's the Kim Young-sam administration or Nomi administration, people only remember 1 or 2 stuff, And if this administration could just find a solution for privacy law,
Sounds like
find a solution for this fintech law.
In terms of the bringing up the foundations, we have talked about the human resources and so on. What about the, what do you call it, the fundamental science? Would you call it the basic science? What are some of the basic science areas where Korea have to focus more and exert more efforts to boost? Are there particular basic scientific areas that Korea needs extra efforts?
For the fourth industrial revolution, I think it's mostly computer science, and the AI, machine learning, and computer vision. That kind of areas are the areas that we need more efforts.
Korea has been strong in electronics, computer-related electronics. I suppose smartphone is also related to the area and so on. For decades, Korea has been a strong player. What do you mean by Korea needing more efforts in computer science?
That's more about hardware. We are very hardware-oriented country. But the software, we are very way behind. And the software is things that people have, something that you get for free when you purchase hardware. Right. It comes with the hardware for free. So that then makes the overall industry very damaged. And in the 90s, best students go to computer science programs. And now they don't go. And even if they go, they graduate. They never pursue graduate degrees because they know that their treatment after
the work
graduation, it's not that great. So
the issue with the basic science, right? It's not just the science itself. It applies to design as well as engineering. So it's an interesting. Let's say the Korea is probably one of the best in detailed design, detail engineering.
In manufacturing.
Well, anything is either EPC, or engineering, procurement, construction, or even designing a car. We are very good in detailed design. So when someone actually does the basic design, and you were good at making it better. But if you give them a clean sheet of paper saying,
create something new,
we're not good at it. And this is the biggest problem with the a lot of the EPC companies in Korea, which is well known. Our EPC industry is very well known in the world. And the problem is only about 10% has a what we call the basic design engineering capabilities.
I see.
So if you, let's say, come up with a, I don't know, 500 kilowatt or hectowatt plant, we're very good at taking someone else's design and making it better, and which is a skill itself, right? But you know, creating something new, that's a skill that we just have a hard time. The software industry is a major social issue for Korea. On average, we're making about 25% of what U.S. software engineer makes.
You mean the pay level?
Pay level. It is one of the lowest paying job in Korea.
I see.
And it's hard to find a job, first of all. And so no one is actually doing this, right? No, it's hard to find a coder. You know, it is different from 10, 15 years ago. And then larger corporations basically hire them. So if you go ask them, what do you want to work for? It's rare that software engineer would go for the venture companies. So this is a social issue. It's just service industry, we don't pay enough.
So as a wrap-up point, Mr. Sunny, in terms of getting the best out of what Korea already has, despite all these problems that we have already mentioned, what should be one focus that Korea should keep in mind in terms of getting the best, best use of our resources?
You know, a lot of people blame others and try to catch up and find out what's the kind of next big technology that comes to us. The problem's within us. It is the single most important item here is deregulation. If you could just deregulate a couple of things, we have the technology already, right? You don't need another revolution to kind of use our leverage our technology. Just the deregulation, one or two key things, and I think it just takes one because if you have a successful, I think the political sentiment will kind of push the domino, saying let's open it up, right?
Very good point, Professor Cho Sung-zoon. Your final point on opening our path going forward, very briefly.
Yeah, same as Mr. E, deregulation, but I'll talk about the educational deregulation. Like in high school, we separate students into two groups, natural science students and liberal arts students. It's like a cage, I would say cage fish farm. You cannot go to the other pond. You have to stay in there for the rest of your life. And you're given a choice at the age of 15. And once you get into university, you also have to choose a major. It's the same as cage fish farm again, and you cannot really get out. It's very hard. So, but for the revolution to succeed, we need people who understand business as well as technology. So we need more of a multiplayer in some sense. So the government has to get rid of it. And it's a regulation. It's a huge regulation that blocks many good students to develop into a very valuable asset, human asset.
Excellent point. We just had a very brief discussion on a huge issue today, I guess, but within this brief period of time, I guess we came up with several very interesting, penetrating insights indeed from our wonderful guests. Thank you very much for both of you joining us. And we want to also thank our viewers for having joined us from all around the world. And next time when we discuss these issues that matters for Korea as well as the world, we want to ask you to come back again to this program Upfront. Until then, this has been Kim Byung-ju. Thank you very much.